We got enough. Why don't we call the meeting to order? I'm sorry it's a little late. I had trouble getting on the internet too. I'm going to try video. I don't know if it's going to work. But what I'd like to do is we call the meeting to order. Peter, where are you? Peter, you good to move forward?
Present and accounted for, sir.
Okay. Rich, are you all set to rock and roll?
I am, thank you.
Matt, are we recording? Are you the person in charge of recording?
Rich is actually doing the recording tonight for BCTV.
Okay, and that's okay. We still have, we can get it and stuff for Peter.
Yeah, he sends it. He'll send it off to Peter after it's edited. He'll send it out to all of us.
So, you know, at town meeting, I get to appoint a parliamentarian to work with me. Matt, I want to appoint you to keep track of people for me. So if somebody has a question or wants to ask something, and if you notice them, because I think we're on 2 pages again, aren't we?
I have 3 pages on my screen. It really depends on the size of your screen.
25 people altogether?
I see 44 participants.
44, okay. So listen, there's a lot of participants. So if everybody, if you need to ask a question or have input, if you could just unmute yourself and you'll come to the top. We have to disable the chat feature. We were told that by the attorney that violates the open meeting laws. So instead of fighting it, we are just gonna we're disabling that.
Oh my God.
Yes. Oh my God. What?
No, am I allowed to speak?
I don't know who's talking.
Am I Jessica Smith? I apologize that I had,
Okay.
but I
No,
wanted to see, my hand's been raised since the beginning, but you just keep forgetting to mention me.
no, Jessica, we're trying to start the meeting and people keep
Oh,
interrupting.
I'm sorry. I thought it said public comments and the agenda was first.
I never said the public comment yet, Jessica. So if you just would hold on for a minute, I'm trying to explain the ground rules, okay? So we're asking that anybody that wants to speak, if you unmute yourself and you come to the top, Matt, you can just keep track of that for me. I would appreciate it. The first, I just want to remind everybody that under public comment, you have 4 minutes to speak. You can speak on any item you want that is we're allowed to speak about. Obviously, we're not allowed to speak about personnel, contractual, and we're not allowed to speak about student issues, specific student issues. The first thing on the agenda is the additions or deletions to the agenda. Does anybody have any addition or deletion to the agenda?
Okay, yes, I wanted to add a topic. That's what I was saying.
Okay, well, you don't have standing to add a topic, Jessica. You can ask that we add something, and if a board member is willing to add that, then it can be added, okay? So what topic would you like to add?
No, I like, you know, Mark just made mention of something very important that's not being done for his son. And somebody said that, and he's not being returned the phone call from the superintendent. I also don't get returned phone calls from the superintendent. So when you're saying that he's the only one getting it, it's not only him. You know, you have to give people a chance to talk. You stop everyone in all this protocol, and you know that's not right. You silence people. Like, you guys made a decision with my kids that was totally wrong, but now you don't have to answer to it. You're just going to say you'll send me a letter. You know, everyone has to be able to express themselves. How could it be an open meeting violation to have the chat? Maybe you guys just don't want people to write things there because it's more freedom. You know what I'm saying? We need to be able to talk about the way our kids are being hurt here.
Okay, Jessica, I appreciate the comments. Unfortunately, we can't talk about your child. We've already explained that to you a couple times.
No, actually, you didn't. You never told me why you made the decision, but that's fine. I already went to the Board of Education. I already solved it, but I just wanted to tell you guys, when you made that decision, which was against in the best interest of my kids, in order to keep my kids and do it in the best interest of them, I had to make them go live with somebody else in the Dover district. So now you're responsible for separating my family. Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Is this the public comment portion?
No, Mark, it isn't. This is a
Okay, thank you.
the agenda. Eventually we'll get through it, I think. Does anybody, if nobody has any, then I'll go to members of the public. So, Mark, this is the members of the public portion. But Mark, I'm going to warn you, if you start
Okay.
talking about the superintendent and it becomes a personnel issue, we're going to mute you.
No. This is about our school shutdown and reopening. And then I heard through the grapevine, we're planning on shutting down between Thanksgiving and Christmas. But
Mark,
all right.
so I can let
First
you know,
issue is
Mark,
that
Mark,
my
Mark,
kids,
Mark,
we chose to
Mark,
keep our children home at first.
Mark,
Then my
hang
wife
on.
wanted to send them back in October. I thought it was a bad idea. I still think it's a bad idea. But what happened was when my kids stayed home, remote learning was out of the question. We basically got what they call school assisted, where every week we print off 100 pages to inundate our life so that we could go through the worksheets with our children, send them back to the school, and never have any teacher contact at all. Unless it was a Wednesday, but then it's not really a scheduled contact. It's more like 5 or 15 minutes between the parent and the teacher. That's completely uncalled for, and it goes against a free and appropriate public education, because my children weren't being educated. School assisted was nothing. It's actually a slap in the face, and it feels like retaliation to the parents who wanted to keep their children home safe. Now I'm under the influence that the school board says, oh, now we're going to shut down the schools because of the pandemic. You know what? I'm beside myself. This board hires advisors like Will Anton and Mr. Martin, who suggested and told you guys, advised you guys to open up late in December. This board did not take their advice. I find it unethical for the board to hire advisors and not take their advice in a time like this, where we're under a pandemic and more people are being infected and more people are dying every day. Now we are in a safe little sliver of the world, thank God. But does that mean we can just take it for granted and then just do as we wish, whether it's for selfish reasons or selfish purposes, to send these kids back to school? Now we're doing the yo-yo thing. How can I ensure that my children, if I decide not to send them back when we reopen for their own safety, we're not going to feel like we're retaliated again and getting like a bottom of the barrel secondhand education where there is no teacher contact and we're only doing email between us and the school, receiving worksheets that we can then take pictures and send back.
Mark,
I hate to get into the process where it's start and go. You know, we got to make a decision. We got to stick with it. And we have to have some guidelines for all children's education, those whose parents wish them to stay home or those who may go back at that time. It's very indecisive. I'm not very happy with what's occurred.
so Mark, there's been no decision to shut the school down after Thanksgiving. Okay, that's a topic of discussion for tonight. So you're a little misinformed, but we will be discussing it tonight. So thank you for your input. Is there anybody else under public comments that would like to speak? Okay, I'll move on to members of the staff. Is there any members of the staff that would like to speak?
Mark.
Yeah. Tom?
Hey, Rich.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Just real quickly, in in the spirit of this meeting going as best possibly can tonight, I think the reason we have 5 pages is exactly the topic you're talking about. For clarity, is this the time for the members of the public and teachers, whoever would like to weigh in on the decision that you'll be deciding regarding a possible I don't want to say the word shutdown, but extended vacation? Is now the time for people to be sharing those opinions, or is that going to be later in the meeting? That's just a question to you, Rich, and the board.
So again, there's been no decision made. It was a topic of discussion. Some other schools are doing that to help protect the children and protect the families. They feel it's important. We haven't the River Valley's board has not made a decision yet on if or whether we're going to accept that or not. So I would say that for
understood. So my question is, at what point in the meeting would you be looking for feedback from the public? Would that be during the open feedback to the public right now? Or is that going to be later as we hear, you and the board, the rest of the board dissect that decision? That's my question.
Yeah, and that's where I was headed, Tom. So give me a sec.
Okay.
So
You got it.
what I'm gonna ask the board is, I don't mind putting that off and letting people speak to the topic once we get to that section. Does the board want to have public speak now, or would we want to wait and do it when we're on that topic, that particular topic? Go ahead, Mark, you can start.
Let's wait till we're on that topic and we've gone through the presentation and our discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Kate.
I agree with what Mark's saying. I think there's a lot of information that we are hoping to gain tonight, and that might help inform people's comments. It might give them the clarity they're looking for.
Okay, Laura? Laura, go ahead. Somehow you're,
Me?
yeah, I hear you now.
I concur with Mark and Kate.
Okay, Rick?
No feelings one way or the other.
Okay, so I think, Tom, we're gonna hold, and we'll let you all speak when we're on that topic. So I guess I should clarify it. Does anybody have a public comment that is not on the agenda at some point tonight? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna move on to review and approve. Oh, I'm sorry, I had asked for staff. Was there anybody in the staff that wanted to speak about any topic? Okay, I don't see anybody coming up. Matt, we good to move forward? Okay, thank you. Okay, so then the next topic is review and approve the minutes of the October 19th, 2020 meeting. I believe there are some corrections on this. So if we want to make corrections, we should move the article, move the item forward, and then make the corrections, and then we'll approve them with the corrections.
Rich, I move that we approve the minutes of October 19th.
Second.
Okay, and then Mark, do you have some corrections?
I do, yes. On page 2, the third paragraph, this one's really small, the second to last line, got the word could in there twice. More importantly, the fourth paragraph down, Ms. Garland was speaking about the CRF funds, not all COVID funds, in that first line.
Do you have anything else, Mark?
I do. I was going to ask Peter if he is
Well,
ready for me to move on.
Go slow. I think we're doing good. And then
Okay.
we'll ask Peter what he needs help with afterwards.
We're doing fine.
All right. Then also on page 2, the review the budget timeline. Should just be noted that we had not received that timeline. And it was going to get sent out. I don't know if it did. On page 3, in the third paragraph, the last line, that should just be $5,000, not $5,000. That was mileage, not dollar amount. Same thing in paragraph 4, the first line, that's 1,000 miles per month, not $1,000. The 1, 2, 3, 4. The sixth paragraph up on page 3, last line, you have Mr. Garland instead of Miss Garland. On page 4, the third paragraph, the pay warrants, they were not $614, they were $614,629.69. Also on page,
For one more time.
oh yeah, the third paragraph down on page 4, the pay warrants were not $614, They were $614,629.69.
Got it.
Okay. Under old business, also on page 4, the first paragraph, the last two lines. The ERV is to ship on December 9th, and the exhaust fans are to ship on November 30th. And on page 6, third paragraph down, Mr. Warner explained that that was VHI, not Visbit, proxies were needed. On page 7, under policy C11, I had moved to warn the policy, not adopt it. And for C20, just below that, Laura had moved to warn that policy, not adopt it. And that's it.
Got it. Thank you. That was-
Thank you.
Peter, just to clarify, so we're going to amend the minutes to show that on the 2 policy questions, they weren't voted to adopt, they were voted to warn, to post to warn, correct?
Clear. Thank you.
Okay. Is everybody clear on the corrections that Mark made? Is suggesting?
Clear.
Okay, thumbs up, Rick. Oh, Dwight, you joined us, thank you. Laura, you all set? You seconded the motion.
I'm all set, yes.
Okay, so the motion's been made by Mark and seconded that we accept the minutes with those corrections. Peter, you all set? So if we are good to go, all those in favor say aye.
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 The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, it's unanimous. So we will move forward. Under correspondence. So I had asked and mentioned that I'd like to see, there was some discussion with the West River group and about closing the school after Thanksgiving and going to remote learning for 2 weeks. If people were to travel outside the district. So when we set up the agenda, Mr. Martin does some research for us so we have information to make a decision. Obviously, if it's something we want to do, we need to do it tonight. We can't put the decision off to the next meeting because that doesn't give anybody warning and it doesn't let anybody prepare. So Mr. Martin got a letter from our COVID coordinator, and what happened is when they just this started coming down, the state recommended or mandated that each supervisory union hire the most qualified person they could find in the area to be a COVID coordinator and to be the resource that the district uses. So Wyndham Central hired the West River nurse, who's a very experienced nurse and a graduate of Leland and Gray. Also, to do that. So Matt asked the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union COVID coordinator to give her opinion on this discussion for us, which is a letter that I believe the board was sent to the board. We also, she did not do this just in a vacuum. And this was not a blanket letter given to all the districts. It was specifically done as a request by Principal Martin. We also have, she also did in coordination in discussion with our school nurse, and the Wardsboro and Dover buildings share a common nurse. And I don't think she was able to make it tonight, Matt. She works Monday night, so we weren't able to get her. I believe Jorda is here somewhere. Yes, okay, Matt's shaking his head, yes. We also received a letter from a parent in Wardsboro, and I just got this late this afternoon, and this came through through Tammy, but I see that she's here. So I don't know if she wants me to read that letter, and I don't know. Has everybody seen? First off, I'll start with the letter from the COVID coordinator. Did everybody get to see that?
Yes.
The board got to
Yes,
see.
Yes.
Okay.
I did. Was that part of the stuff that went out with the agenda? Did the public get to see that also? Okay, Matt's saying the public got to see it. Is there anybody that's not familiar with the October 26th letter from Giordano to Mr. Martin and needs it to be read to them?
Rich, that attachment, for whatever reason, at least for me, was not able to open off the website.
Okay, so I'm gonna, if you bear with me, thank you, Tom. I'm gonna read that. So it's dated October 26th, and it's to Mr. Martin. It says, "It is my recommendation as the COVID-19 coordinator for WCSU that any schools open in our district for in-person instruction become fully remote 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. The reason for the recommendation are many, and these have asterisks next to them. Families who send their children to our schools may travel to counties identified as high COVID-19 cases by Agency of Commerce and Community Development, Vermont Department of Health, and Agency of Ed. Exposure to COVID-19 is such a huge risk, and transmitting it to others within our community has high potential. We must expect families will travel and be proactive and prevent the spread of COVID-19 within our community. We know that there are COVID-19 cases within our area. BBA has several. Burton Academy, I guess, Matt. Family and friends will be traveling to our area from red and yellow counties to spend the holiday with our school families. This increases the risk of the spread of COVID-19. The weather has changed, so there will be more indoor visits with people from high COVID-19 areas. Maintaining physical distancing will be much more challenging. Also, wearing facial coverings may be more relaxed during holiday visits with family and friends. We are all getting COVID-19 weary and relaxing our own safety by not following the Department of Health guidelines. It is very important everyone follow the guidelines. Staff and families are remember the Vermont state guidelines for travel. Vermont residents. Vermonters may travel outside of Vermont to counties across the Northeast, including New England, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, DC, Virginia, and West Virginia that have a similar active COVID-19 caseload to Vermont, which is defined at less than 400 active cases per million, and return without quarantining if they do so in a personal vehicle. Vermonters must remember to follow any travel restriction quarantine requirements for the states they plan to visit. If they travel to quarantine county or outside the Northeast, including New England, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, DC, Virginia, and West Virginia, Vermonters will be required to quarantine in Vermont upon return. Read more about quarantining at the Vermont Department of Health website. In closing, I think it is prudent to go fully remote 2 weeks after Thanksgiving for the safety of our students, faculty, staff, and families. Thank you. We also have a letter that I don't believe got out because it came in late today. I saw Heather somewhere. Heather, do you want me to read this or would you like to read it? Heather?
Please go ahead and read it, Rich. Thank you.
Okay. So this is dated today, and it's Deer River Valley Union District School Board. I'm writing this letter to oppose the recommendation on the agenda to forego in-person learning to students for 2 weeks after both the Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks. At this time, there are no cases specific to our communities that would just justify denying our families 24 additional days of in-person education. The policies regarding COVID were provided to all families. Should a family choose to travel outside of the safe areas per the ACCD or visit with companies that have not met the prescribed quarantine requirements,
In doing so, they also make the choice to do remote learning until they meet the guidelines to return to in-person learning. This is an option in our community families, thanks to our board on their prior decision, and is not available in others. If the concern is of non-compliance of families, then maybe the board could look into a policy or repercussions due to non-compliance. This recommendation would have a substantial impact on the students, the families, and community. Therefore, I ask the board to oppose the recommendation and deny the students across 2 communities an additional 24 days of in-person instruction. Kindly, Heather Bedard. Okay, so I'm going to open it up to discussion, and what I'm going to do is allow board discussion first, if there is any, and then we'll go to anybody from the public and then the staff. So anybody from the board like to weigh in?
I would.
Go ahead, Laura.
So I feel like we made a good decision to start school. I feel like we knew that we needed to continually reevaluate that decision. And so I'm willing to reevaluate that here. I want to make sure that I'm clear that what is being recommended is 2 weeks right after Thanksgiving, not coming back for, when I first read it, it didn't make sense to me. I read it as saying, come back for 2 weeks after Thanksgiving and then shut down. So it's shut down after Thanksgiving for 2 weeks, shut down after Christmas for 2 weeks. Correct? Correct.
Yeah, so what it looks like is if we were to shut down after Thanksgiving, it would be the 30th through the 11th. They would come back to school for a week and a few days, and then there'd be another shutdown if we were to go that. And actually right now, though, I thought we were just discussing it after Thanksgiving, but it does make sense to talk about after the Christmas holiday also. So I think it should be one decision.
Yeah.
With the understanding that if the state tells us we have to shut down anyways, then, you know, it doesn't matter what we decide.
Right, right. I would say I don't actually know. I want to hear the discussion tonight, but I am concerned about people becoming weary by the whole pandemic and compliance with the social distancing and, you know, requirements for masks. I don't know how we can assess if that is you know, a challenge that we're already seeing in our school. I appreciate Heather's comment about you know, folks have the opportunity to travel and then stay home and learn remotely, to be respectful, and they do have that opportunity. You know, I think if everyone were to do that, I would feel like, okay, well, you know, then we proceed. But I'll be interested in what measure of confidence the administrators have that folks are complying with the health and safety guidelines, if that's even appropriate to ask. So just some things I'm thinking about and listening for.
So I think that may be a really good thing. Hang on a sec, Mark. Matt or Tammy, would you, or I don't know if it's appropriate for Jordan, would one of you like to speak to how people are complying?
Tammy or Jordan?
And you don't have to if none of you'd like to. I just didn't know if you were aware of good compliance or not compliance, or, I mean, we hear a lot of urban myths, like somebody down the road in Wilmington, you know, was getting checked in and the child was telling them how they just seen Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse down in Disney for the last week when they weren't, didn't claim that. So again, it's urban myth. I don't know of any firsthand. I didn't know if you guys did.
Well, so Rich, just to clarify, I mean, I've had people, not necessarily parents, but I've had people really push back against the masks and quarantining. And so, you know, it's everyone kind of agreeing to a set of protocols, and how we are going to move through this is key for the decisions that we're making. And I think it's key in terms of us being able to keep the school open. So I'm trying to understand. I don't even know if it's possible for Matt and Tammy to speak to that. I mean, it may not be really a fair question, but I figure I'll ask it and you'll let me know if it's not. So.
I can speak from the Wardsboro perspective. I think parents have done a fantastic job abiding by the guidelines. However, we're going into new territory as we haven't really gone through a holiday period yet. So I don't know what that will bring. I can't really speak to that.
Matt and Jordan.
So this is Jordan. And we don't have students at Leland and Gray right now, so we haven't had that experience, except for we did have a Rocktoberfest last week, and we had a student who came from New Jersey and didn't quarantine. So I think for the most part, lots of people are following the guidelines and doing a great job, but we do have some people that are a little more relaxed about the guidelines, and really it only takes one to spread the disease. So it's kind of scary, actually.
Thank you. Matt?
I would agree with Tammy. I would say the overwhelming majority of families are doing a fantastic job, really. Really stepping up for everyone's safety, keeping kids home, keeping siblings home, getting COVID tests when there's multiple symptoms. I can't say enough how impressed I am with the families. I also think the kids and the staff who are, on the front lines kind of fighting the mask war every day. It's really hard to do that with kids. If you work in a school, you understand. If you don't work in a school, I'm sorry, you don't understand what it's like to try to encourage kids all day long in recess and PE to be wearing a mask. So that said, I think that there are times, there are a few instances when we don't get the full story in our screening in the morning. Occasionally, we get parents that use Tylenol and things to reduce fever and push them out of the car and send them to school. That is a problem. And then occasionally there must be kids or people that we're not aware of. So those are some concerns that we have. But overall, teachers would rather be in school. Let me tell you, it's a lot easier to educate your kids in school for us. We're better at it. Our facilities are better. We have the tools and the things we need. So we would rather be in school teaching your kids, just so you know. And I also think the final thing is that the school is doing a fantastic job. I mean, we have a 41-page manual. We've invested tens of thousands of dollars in equipment, in cleaning supplies, in people. So I feel like all of those things are really good. That said, the map continues to close in on us. Red gets closer. That's not because people are doing diligence. That's because people are either not doing it or unknowingly not doing it. Like those are sort of the two options. So, and unfortunately, we don't get to control what families do for the most part. We can't control it. We just have to rely on it. We've been fortunate enough to really have people, like I said, toeing the line, pulling their mark. That said, we've got 60% of our staff in a high risk category. And so, yes, I am concerned about their health, and I am concerned about the health of our kids as well. So that's why, I wanted to get clarification from Jorda, get a recommendation so that we could have this discussion, include the community so that we can hear their concerns and realize that this is a very hard decision, and maybe half the people go away happy tonight if you're lucky. But I don't envy you, but that's a little information, a little background.
Thank you, Matt. Mark, you had your hand up next.
Yep. So can start off by saying I don't think that this is a good idea. I think that our schools should remain open coming back from vacation. On the surface, the idea of going remote for 2 weeks seems to make sense. If everybody that is in our schools and all the families were to quarantine for 2 weeks after said holiday, but they're not going to. Those who are not going to follow the rules and guidelines over Thanksgiving and winter break are also not going to follow the rules and guidelines the week or two after those vacation holidays. I think that one thing we could do, while probably wouldn't have a whole lot of legal backing to it, we could have parents sign affidavits coming back from vacations. And if they don't sign the affidavit, then I see Mark shaking his head. If they don't sign the affidavit, then they'd have to keep their kids home.
That's retaliation, Mark. You can't do that. It's against the law.
Mark, you weren't recognized, so please don't unmute.
He said I was shaking my head. He recognized me.
Mark, okay, but you weren't.
I'll raise my hand next time. Sorry.
Thank you, Mark. Mark Schaber, go ahead and we'll get to you in a minute, Mark Formel.
Thank you. I'll address that. It's not retaliation for anything. And while I said it might not have an awful lot of legal backing to it, there's nothing illegal about requesting that. We do it for other things. That's kind of besides the point. Some of the other comments that I have are, we have to remember that primary age school students are at lower risk for both getting and transmitting COVID. We have, hold on a second. Right, bear with me 1 second. The October 23rd updated AOE and DOH guidance, and I believe page 12, which I'm referring to, was included in the board packet and is at the meeting docs link. Talks about the importance of continually communicating with families, reminding them about their responsibilities, in addition to making it very clear the importance of having our kids in school for both their health and mental welfare. I think what we need to do is we need to communicate with our parents. We need to remind them of their responsibilities, both by both the state and local guidance, and what is best practice. And I think that's the best that we can do. I don't believe that closing for 2 weeks is going to prevent anything. It'll just be extended vacations for some of the students. Parents don't have to be back if their kids aren't. And then the other side of the coin is that parents need to work. Having to keep kids home is problematic. And there will come a time during this year, most likely, when we're going to have to close because of a case in the school or a case in the community. And parents are going to need their vacation time for that. So I'm finished.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Kate, Rick, and Dwight, anything? Go ahead, Kate.
This is something that, I've been weighing a lot ever since we saw it on the agenda. I think Mark's brought up a really valid point that the people who are going to follow the rules are going to do their best. And I think there's a high level of respect overall. I know that that doesn't speak to every single family and every single student, but I think there's a really big feeling of accountability to keep everyone safe. We want to keep our children safe. We want to keep the staff safe. We want to keep our community members safe. I think there's a really big feeling of that and a state as a whole. Like, I think that's one of the reasons why Vermont has stayed so healthy to begin with. We've been very fortunate. We've taken this very seriously. And, you know, I think Mark brought up a really, really valid point that the people who are going to take it seriously are going to do so. And that the people who might view it as an extended time to travel might do that. So it's a really tough call. I think remote schooling, I can speak from a personal perspective, is very challenging. It's very challenging to try to maintain a work schedule and also maintain a child's education schedule on the same day. I do it every Wednesday. It's not easy. I have to push a lot of meetings off on Wednesdays, and it's tricky. It's brought up job performance issues and things like that. And to do it 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, 2 weeks after Christmas, 2 weeks after February vacation, we probably will face a shutdown at some point in the game. And it's a really tricky thing for parents to know that and have that weighing on their mind. We've been at this for 7 or 8 months, 8 months, I believe. And parents are very well aware of the stakes. And I think they're really trying their best. So that's one perspective. So that's all.
Thank you, Kate. Rick or Dwight, do either one of you have anything, comments, or? Go ahead, Dwight. And then Rick.
Okay. First, I'd just like to thank our COVID coordinator, Jordan, for and it's not an easy job, and I don't envy her, and I don't think that's a job I want to have, but it's an important thing to instruct us on how to keep our schools safe. And also, I want to thank Matt for bringing this up. It's a difficult topic, and it's important that we're having this conversation. I don't think I have a whole lot more to add. I don't necessarily agree with going remote for 2 weeks afterwards. I feel as though parents already have an option to go remote if they aren't following the guidelines, and if they do go out of state, that they need to follow those guidelines. It's my understanding that parents have already been given those guidelines. So the only thing I would say is maybe if we can certainly remind them and give them of what the guidelines are prior to the vacation time. As far as compliance, I'd like to see it go a step further, that what Mark was saying about having some kind of affidavit. I don't know if that's legal or not, but I know there are a lot of other requirements that children have to attend the school. I don't see why that couldn't be another one to certify that they followed the guidelines. So I would say that would be something I'd like to see.
Okay, thank you. Rick.
Okay, I'm finally unmuted. I just want to get Jorda's feedback on what would a week do for everything. I mean, it seems like Thanksgiving's on Thursday. That gives plenty of time. I'm wondering if a week on either end might be a nice compromise where we could, kind of keep everybody as happy as possible, not factionalize things. So I just would like to get some feedback from a healthcare professional on 7 days post-Thanksgiving and post-Christmas.
Okay, so COVID's incubation period is 2 to 14 days. It is possible to do 7 days if everybody gets tested for COVID after the 7th day. So that's what I know.
Great, thank you, Jorda. I'd like to just entertain that as part of our deliberations here.
Yeah.
We just do 1 week, and if anybody does travel, that we're encouraging parents to go ahead and get a test, maybe a little bit more than encouraging them to get a test if they travel. It seems might be a middle ground that might work a little bit better for everyone. I know it's a busy time of year in the Valley as far as work and things like that go, and 2 weeks is a lot of time.
It is a lot of time. And, I didn't come to this recommendation lightly. I did some research with the Vermont Department of Health, the CDC, AOE, and the ACCD, and looking at the travel map. I mean, there's only one county that's bordering us is green. Everything else is yellow or red. If you look at the whole, it's updated every Tuesday. It is closing in on Vermont, unfortunately.
It's
And-
scary all around us. I agree, Jordan.
Yeah, and the thing is that if they do travel, the state requirement is that they have to be tested after 7 days or do the full 14 days of quarantine. So that's already on them. But, you know, there's no way to hold somebody accountable for that. We're not supposed to investigate that in terms of, you know, that's not our job to question them about their travel in terms of, did you go out for anywhere out of state for Thanksgiving? I mean, we can ask that during our screening, but they don't necessarily have to tell us the truth.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Rick, do you have any other comments or any other thoughts?
That's going to do it for me for now. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I write myself notes and sometimes I can't read my own handwriting. Matt and Tammy, I'm sorry. I was going to have you guys speak to it first before I went to the board. So is there any other than where Laura put you on the spot and asked you questions? Is there any other thoughts or comments you guys want to make? And Matt, I see you're unmuted.
I was going to be unmuted just to tell you that you had a few hands up. You have 3, Allison, the Kelly family, and Laura. But to answer your question, the only thing I'd like to respond to is just to let Mark know, rest assured that, and the parents know this, we communicate frequently with families, making reminders and trying to do what we can. Maybe they may be getting sick of it. But we still do at least 1 or 2 notifications a week with reminders, with links to the cross-state travel map. Like I said, the overwhelming majority is really doing a great job. There are a few, those are the ones we don't control, like Mark said, no matter what we say, what we do, some people may just do it anyway. And I still think that's a really small number, but it's enough to be, a little concerned, for sure.
Tammy, you all set?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Matt. We also communicate, I would say, on a weekly basis in our weekly newsletter. We've also directed people to the travel map. We have had families that have, actually have been forced to do this and have followed the rules. So, yeah, that's just all I wanted to add. We are continually educating, and that's really all we can do. We can't play the private investigator role, as we were told earlier by our school nurses.
Okay, thank you. So I had next Jordan. I know you also were asked some direct questions. Do you have anything else you'd like to weigh in before we move on to parents?
I do not have anything further.
Okay, and Matt, I think we said it, the school nurse wasn't able to make it tonight, right?
Right, yeah, Lois Tebow is our school nurse, and she was the one who initially started this conversation last week.
Okay, and Tom, you asked, Tom Oakley, I'm gonna give you first dibs because you asked first, and then Matt, who else, and then we'll get the next parents up. So Tom, did you have any comments or?
Rich, I actually, not really. I just kind of saw where the meeting was going and wanted to make sure that, people had an opportunity to state their feelings on it. I guess just in listening to the board and to Jordan, the only thing that I would add is I think I'll address a little bit of the elephant in the room that we don't really talk about as a community. But we're very focused, which we need to be, on the safety of who leaves the state, and we can control that. Meanwhile, going into 7-Eleven or Shaw's or anywhere on a weekend, seeing the cars come back and forth isn't very much different than visiting New Jersey, Connecticut. And and that being said, that's been the case since really the beginning of our shutdown, and our cases have been doing okay. And I know the COVID coordinator didn't think that we should open originally. We did. We've done a phenomenal job as a community. The staff has done a phenomenal job. Our children have done a phenomenal job. And you know, it seems to be working. It seems to be working pretty well. But I just think that every now and again, we should maybe acknowledge the fact that people are coming into our community left and right, and they're leaving on the weekends, and you know, we're still managing to wear masks and wash our hands, make the right decisions, and keep each other safe.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Rich.
Matt, you had some other parents?
Yep, we have Allison from Stratton, I believe.
Okay, and then who else?
After that, we have the Kelly family, I believe, from Dover.
Okay, thank you. Allison and then the Kellys.
Okay, hi, Rich. I don't know what page I'm on for you, but it's Allison Young. Thank you for letting me say something.
You're a step above Tom Oakley.
Oh, good. So I definitely appreciated what Mark had said with regard to the fact that if these families are going to be, breaking the rules anyway, why are they only going to break the rules for 9 days? What's the difference with having another 14 days for them to do the same thing? If they're going to break the rules to begin with, I am not personally confident that they're going to come back and quarantine and decide to do the right thing. So I'm not really sure what the whole intent of that would be. Like Kate said, if you're going to do it right, you're going to do it right the first time. But I think, somebody had mentioned BBA. They did have some cases and they've had some success managing it. I mean, that's the point of all this, all the hoops that you guys have jumped through, what Matt and Tammy and Bill have all gone through, these kids wearing masks all day, every day. This is the point, to be able to protect ourselves if there is an exposure. We're doing all of this for a reason, but it was mentioned a couple of times today by some parents in the local area that going forward, it might be helpful in situations like this where you do need to have a community feeling. And then, Rich, this is our Google Forms thing that we did, last week. It's really easy to send out a survey. It's a 1-question survey saying, hey, what do you guys think? Would a quarantine be helpful? You might get 10% back that say yes and 90 that say no, and you'd already have your answer. So obviously, from my perspective, I would like to see school go on. I've got little kids. They need the consistency. But that was kind of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. The Kelly family, I'm not sure if you can just identify who's speaking.
Yes, this is Heather Kelly.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Go ahead.
I just want to let you guys know that we are in the middle of a quarantine after traveling to the red zone. We're doing the right thing, got our COVID test. But when we were home from the COVID in March, it was a lot different situation. Right now, my bakery is closed. There's no one here. There's no customers in town. But when we approach Thanksgiving and we approach Christmas, AKA Heck Week, our community grows from 1,000 people, give or take, to 20,000 visitors. And any one of us parents that are on the front line, and there are many of us, are going to be super exposed. I can tell you that in March, when I had no childcare because we were home, I was doing my absolute best in survival mode to, juggle the school and juggle, the bakery being open once that happened. And, and it was just, there were times where we had to bring the kids into the bakery. And that's not something I took lightly. I know that they were exposed to our customers who I knew aren't quarantining properly, but I had no choice. So for us personally, and I think that I speak for a lot of other people on the front line, they are way more exposed being home than they would be safe at school, where the proper steps can be taken. So I hope that that is considered. I hope that you guys realize a lot of our childcare that we used to be able to rely on, they have to be imported from the red zone. So if they can't come here and visit, then we don't have another option besides the school. I'm just not sure what we will all do. So please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Matt, is there any other parents?
Peter Barris has his hand up.
Okay, and then Mark has his hand up too. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I'm currently in Delaware, 10 minutes from Pennsylvania, where I'm visiting my 99-year-old mother. privileged because she is at the point of death. I have only been allowed to visit every 2 weeks because I have to come back, quarantine for 7 days in Vermont, get a COVID test, wait a day to find out the results. If I'm lucky, they get that fast, and then repeat until this process is over. And I mention this because it is an enormous and expensive challenge just to live an almost kind of normal life as your parents go through dying. So, you know, I just wanted to put that out there that, you know, there's nobody trying to lock people down for some kind of political reason. There's an awful lot of misinformation out there. But, you know, my experience is that really the vast majority of people are doing the best they can. And we just all have to do that and hope for the best.
Thank you, Peter.
End of rant. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, go ahead. Mark Formel, I'm sorry.
Hello, thank you. I'm a little confused because I've heard a lot about remote learning, and to my knowledge, we haven't had access to remote learning since the school year ended last year. Like I said, I kept my younger children home at the beginning of the school year, and we were given school assisted, which encompassed us printing 100 worksheets a week, going through the worksheets for our children, taking pictures and sending them back to the school. And there's no contact whatsoever between my students, my children, my students. I felt like we're being retaliated against because there are a measure of means that they can be in that classroom at the same times as the students who are in-house learning from the same teacher. There's a plethora of technologies out there to make this happen so that us parents can choose to have our children home safe where we feel they're safe, or to have them at school where some parents feel they're safe. It's not an option. So I don't understand where the remote learning aspect, people say we have access to remote learning. There is no access to remote learning. That's one deficit that my family has already faced through this COVID process. Secondly, if we're dead, we can't go to work. If COVID goes through this valley like wildfire, like the fires out in Colorado or anywhere else, you know, we're relying heavily on people on the New York and New Hampshire borders to stay away. They can travel through at will if they choose to. We don't have borders. We don't have police checking IDs, keeping people out of our state. So we're already at a great risk because we do have such a safe record with this disease. I just think that it's better to be safe than sorry, and why risk if we don't have to for a paycheck or you know, whatever. I mean, that's my thought of thinking through this. I don't like the exposure of risk at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. If there's no other parent, Kate, hang on. We did say we'd let staff talk too. I don't know if any staff wants to. Matt, do we have any other staff?
Quite a few staff here. I don't see any hands up at the moment, but looks like maybe Miss Cole.
Well, I see a gym person too, raving to us. So why don't we do Bridget and then Jim?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say I would agree with many other teachers in the fact that I would prefer to be teaching students in class rather than remote. However, I also feel that I'm hearing the other sides of the issue where I can understand parent concerns, but I also am a little concerned about, I guess I'm being selfish and thinking of myself, where I would like to feel that if I were to travel and visit my family, I'd like to have that opportunity to feel safely able to quarantine and still be able to reach my students in an effective manner. The other issue would be that if because there's teachers who might have students who are their own personal children or students of their own returning to school or not returning to school, I'm sorry, being remote. Those teachers may not be able to return to Dover to teach. So that would be another thing to consider if there are parents of students that they would need to stay at home with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There was, now he's moved. There was a Jim.
Hey, guys. Hey, first of all, I want to thank the board for all the work they put into this. I know it's challenging, and you know, the only time you get a big turnout like this is usually when somebody's got a lot to say. I, for one, am not for the 2-week quarantine after each holiday. If you add that up, you're looking at another 7 weeks of school that kids aren't going to be there. I thought maybe there was another option. I don't know if it'd be possible. I'd throw it out there. What, instead of giving a 10-day Thanksgiving break, why don't we give a 2-day Thanksgiving break? You know, that way you have a 4-day weekend and you're back in school.
I think it's only a 2-day break. I think they only get Thursday and Friday off, right, Matt? No? Is it?
Yeah, it's like a 10-day.
For Thanksgiving?
It's 7.
Wow. Counting the weekend, it's a 10-day.
I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry, guys. That's what happens when you don't have kids in school. Okay. Kate, you want to speak, but you're not. Are you speaking?
Rich, can I speak? This is Samantha.
Yeah, I kind of bumped over Kate, so I'm going to let Kate speak, and then I'll get to you, Samantha.
Sure. I just had a quick one where I was just going to check in with Matt and Tammy so that we could all be on the same page of definitions with remote learning versus the school assisted, just so that we're all aware of those definitions.
Okay, let me hit Samantha, and then Matt or Tammy, you guys can answer that. That's okay.
Thanks, Rich. Sorry, my video's not working. I don't know why today. So, you know, we have been in school now, and, you know, the teachers have really stepped up to the plate. And we are the frontline workers, as far as I'm concerned. And we have done everything that we can to make the kids feel safe. And I think the kids are doing a really great job. And they do feel safe. They come to school every day with a smile on their face. I think that one thing that I haven't heard is the underlying concern and worry and stress for the teachers. That this is very stressful from day to day, you know, all the decisions that are made, and just worrying about, you know, about our safety and the safety of the kids. I do feel very safe at school, but there is that undercurrent. So I think we can't forget how stressful it is for the teachers. And when we're talking about parents quarantining, you know, thank you for doing that, parents. But that does add another level of, you know, of work to the teachers. Like now we have a new set of remote students, et cetera. So, you know, I don't really, after listening to the conversations, I think, you know, after the break would be good to give a little time and safety buffer. But I don't know. I just think we haven't really heard that the teachers are tired and stressed, and we need to take into consideration how hard this has been from the get-go. And we're willing to do it, but we, you know, I think that everyone's fatigued, and, you know, parents and kids want to see family, and I haven't seen my family, and I haven't left town, and I haven't done anything. So, you know, we're all doing our part. And I think it just needs to be said that, you know, the teachers really have worked so hard to be teaching in this hybrid model, which is exhausting. And it's not just remote, and it's not just in person. And I have a small class, and I I'm not going to complain about it because I know that, some teachers have bigger classes that are doing the same thing. But I think it would be remiss if I didn't say something about, how hard it is to put on a happy face and make sure that those kids don't know how stressful our days are. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, Samantha. Hey, Matt or Tammy, do you want to answer Kate's question? Either one of you, whoever, Matt?
Sure. Also, we have Amanda Georgeson with her hand up in the participants list. Do you want to let her go first, or do you want to?
No, go ahead, because Kate asked the question. I hadn't recognized anybody else.
So the real fundamental difference between school-supported home study and remote learning is some type of direct instruction by the teacher. So as maybe some of you had heard Mark's frustration with the school-supported home study model, which is the emphasis is on home study. It requires a tremendous effort from the parents and the family. And teachers, because they're teaching all day already for the other 4 days, really only have Wednesdays set aside to communicate, correct papers, and provide support to those SSHS families, or as they've become affectionately known, so that I think is the fundamental difference, is that instruction, and it's really just about time. They would provide instruction, but they're already teaching in person, and they're teaching an 8-hour day, 7:30 to 3:30. And they're usually going home, as Samantha said, and doing an hour, 2 hours at night, working one day on a weekend to try to keep up as it is. So that's the frustration, is kind of the idea of personnel, that, and you combine that with expertise. None of our staff carry the online learning specialist endorsement on their teaching license, which is another barrier. So I think everything just takes a little longer, and they have super high standards for what they're trying to give their kids. They're frustrated by not being able to give the SSHS kids what they really would like to, which is what they're giving the in-person kids, which is having them in school and watching them learn and looking for gaps so that they can fill them. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Tammy.
No, I guess what I might add is that if the decision is made tonight for the school to go remote, then that model might look a little different for all students.
Okay, Kate, does that answer your question?
That does. Thank you. I think it's important that we're all working from the same definitions and everybody's aware of those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, the only other thing too, and Matt and Peter, there's a bunch of names that keep moving around that have just like a first name, and we have like a phone number. Have we identified everybody for the minutes?
No, there's a Jim and an iPhone and a James that I have not deduced. And call in user 1.
Okay, Jim, you spoke for a minute. Can you just give us your last name?
Thomas.
Okay, Jim Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, Peter, you got that?
Yes, sir.
And who was the other two? We have a call-in user.
Yes, call in user 1.
Can you just identify who you are?
That might be Bill. I know he was going to call in.
No, Bill's on the screen somewhere else. So I've got Lindsay, I've got Abby, Lindsay's iPhone, and call-in user 1. Can you please, and Heather, can you please tell us who you guys are on Jennifer's iPad? So there's 5, and James, 6.
Rich, call-in user 1 is Bill. He can't use the video, but he can listen. I can watch you, and then I can talk.
Okay, Lindsay's iPhone?
That's Lindsay Brown Rosso.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Heather?
Heather Sullivan.
Thank you, Heather. And Abby?
Abby Welch.
Thank you, Abby. And James?
Dana McGovern.
Okay, thank you. Peter, does that get everybody for you?
I'm not quite clear that I have them all. Is anyone else taking notes here? Or it'll be on the recording.
Okay, well, we got everybody who I can see identified, so.
Rich, there's also one other iPhone besides Dwight.
Yeah, that was Bill, I thought.
No, there's another one.
Lindsay's, we had Lindsay's iPhone.
This one's just plain iPhone.
Okay, I don't see it anywhere. We got one more plain iPhone. Can you please tell us who you are?
Is it possible that's Dwight?
Well, there's a picture of Dwight
Yeah,
with his iPhone.
It could be me because my internet went down, so I'm talking to you on my phone, but you can see my face. So is that good enough for identification?
Your box has iPhone on it. That is Dwight.
Okay.
Okay, so we've gotten a lot of input. So what does the board want to do?
Rich, you do have one more hand up in the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who's that?
Amanda.
Amanda, I don't see her, but go ahead, Amanda. Just
Hi, this is Amanda. I work at Wardsboro, also a parent. I just wanted to add to a few things that have been said already. Speaking off of what Samantha was saying, you know, teachers aren't given the flexibility to travel in quarantine. We have to be there. It said in our HR contract in the beginning of the year that it's not really an option for us to go away and then have to meet the quarantine guidelines. But also just to speak about social distancing and mask wearing, it's definitely not a perfect scenario. You know, I typically work one-on-one with students and I often have to get right next to them in order to read what they're writing on their paper. So it's definitely not a perfect scenario. And now the windows and the doors are more closed because it's cold. And when families are given the remote option, I just want to say that that is not an equitable option because the teacher, of course, is split between the two learning communities. And it's an impossible mission of what Matt was saying earlier to provide the students with what they really need when you have your classroom and when you have the remote learners as well. I did write a letter to the board, but I submitted it just after 5. So I think that it didn't come out or you guys didn't get it in time. The more equitable option I would say is everybody receiving the same type of instruction, whether it is in person or remote, but saying that remote learners have their option and parents have their option to quarantine and then have the students quarantine. Having a student quarantine at last minute notice when they had been traveling and not being able to give them the materials that they need was a less than perfect situation. And really, I don't know how much that student got out of my instruction when given the last minute notice. So that's all.
Okay, I don't see any letter from you, so I'm not sure where you sent it. So I'm sorry about that. And if you'd like to send it to us, we can add it to our collection for the meeting.
Great. I sent it to Tammy too. Maybe she could forward it also.
Okay, thank you. So anyways, what does the board want to do? Does anybody have any further thoughts from the board? Okay, hearing
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I think it's for Jorda. Just thinking about seasonal flu. Just kind of trying to work through what this recommendation would, if it interplays with flu at all, or
So it's true that we are in the beginning of flu season, and flu and COVID colds are all contracted the same way through respiratory droplets. You really don't want to get flu and COVID at the same time because the mortality increases significantly with that. the one thing is we do have an option of getting the flu vaccine, which I highly recommend to everybody who can, because that will lower your chance of getting the flu. It's not 100%, but it's a whole lot better than 0. And then also wearing the mask, social distancing, washing hands, staying home when you're sick. Those are the really important things to do to help prevent the flu as well. I didn't really think about the flu when I wrote this recommendation, but it certainly can go into play because we have flu season until May or so. Vermont hasn't had any cases of flu yet, but it is blooming, especially in like Iowa and West Virginia. So it'll be here soon, for sure.
So Rich, I have a follow-up question for that. And I don't know who it's for. I don't know if it's for our administrators or Bill or Jorda. Well, it's probably a little bit of both. So have we discussed, is it possible to do flu vaccines at the school, to just offer it? I mean, obviously not, I shouldn't say obviously, I am not suggesting mandating it.
No, so we have looked into that. We worked with the state. We're not able to provide that service, not because we aren't willing to, it's because there's not enough staff for the facilities that would need to help us out to offer that with us. So Brattleboro Memorial Hospital is offering pediatric influenza vaccine clinics, and they'll vaccinate any child. They don't have to be patient of them. And then there's other options for adults, and that would be Clear Choice, Grace Cottage, and Brattleboro Hospital.
So guys, Laura, hang on. If you remember at the last meeting, Mark started talking about this, so let Mark fill you in.
Now, Rich?
Yeah.
Okay. As of yesterday, I struck out finding a sponsor. I wasn't going to bring it up today because I spoke to somebody, a physician, this morning who is probably going to be willing to sponsor it. And I'm also in contact with some paramedics who may be willing to administer it, but I haven't worked out the details. So I'm hopeful I'll have a better answer in the next 2 or 3 days. And that will be for both schools.
So we are working on that, but let me go back to, so kind of the question at hand is that we have a letter of recommendation asking for 2 weeks remote learning after the vacations for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So let's kind of try to focus on that. Okay, hang on a second, guys. So that's kind of where I think I'm going to restrict our conversation to. Do we want to go to remote learning for the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, for the 2 weeks after Christmas? So Matt and Mark had his hand up. So go ahead, Matt.
I just want to let you know Elijah has his hand up in the public.
Okay. Mark, go ahead.
So I was under the same belief as Rich that Thanksgiving holiday was a 2-day thing. Can you run over the calendar with us and how that became almost a 2-week vacation? But more importantly, what the actual calendar is.
And do that for the December break too, please, folks. Matt or Tammy?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just pulling it up so I can make sure I have the
okay.
right dates. So for as long as I can remember working in the district, and I've been here a long time, the students have been off from Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of Thanksgiving week. So it's been a 5-day long weekend if you include the Saturday, Sunday. Recently, within the past, I would say 5 years, and Tammy, I would love for you to correct me on that because you've been in the district a long time as well, and Bill as well. I believe we used to have school on Monday and Tuesday. That was let go in favor of a longer Thanksgiving break and teacher professional development on those 2 days, Monday and Tuesday. That is the current calendar that we have now. So there's teacher professional development Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is no school, Thanksgiving break. And maybe Bill could talk about how that calendar is developed at the superintendent's level.
Matt, no, let's stick to the topic at hand. So
Okay.
topic at hand. Can you also run through the December break for us, Christmas break?
Yes, December break starts with a half day on the 23rd. And it goes until students return to school on Monday, January 4th.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You said Elijah wants. Elijah, you're up, sir. There you
Hi.
go.
I had one comment that I guess doesn't really have too much bearing on what we're doing tonight because it's a little bit late. We're going to vote tonight. But I think, Jordan, I thought your letter was good and there's a lot of good thinking in there. But I was struck by, there were a lot of assumptions made about sort of definitive statements made about what people were doing. And this goes back to what Allison's comment earlier about the Google Forms. It seems like going forward, we have a really good tool in those surveys to ask parents, you know, every week we sign up for lunch for our kids all week in sort of a long, complex form. We could give information just about what our plans are. And I think that might be helpful for sort of assuaging fears and not making too many assumptions about what other families are doing and who's going where. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so is there anybody on the board who'd like to make a motion? Yes, Matt? Sorry,
we got one more hand up in the crowd. Megan.
Okay, I'm gonna cut that off for a minute. Is there anybody on the board that'd like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion for the purposes of moving the question that we I will make the motion for the purposes of moving the question that we
Lauren, just so there is no question, there's a discussion. So if nobody makes a motion, then nothing changes.
Okay.
So if you'd like to make a motion for something, you can do that.
Yeah. I think I will wait.
Okay. So since nobody on the board's going to make a motion, I think it's we're going to go ahead and run school as it is scheduled. So I just want to bring up one more thing. We have a winter break in February usually, which again is another week. And so I was just going to mention that, again, that's 3 months off. Who knows what's going to happen? A lot of things can change in the world. But I didn't know if we would want to have, not maybe tonight, but at some point discuss maybe not having a full week off for the winter break in February, but to break that up into 5 individual days off and maybe spread them out so that it would give everybody a little bit of a breather, but not require the same kind of, quarantining. So I'm not gonna, we won't discuss that tonight, but just something to kind of keep in the back of everybody's mind. So with nobody making a motion, there's nothing to vote on. We're gonna move on to old business. Ventilation system update. Matt, is that you?
Richard?
Yes.
We did still have a member of the public that had their hand up that didn't get to speak.
Okay, I think we've been an hour and a half on the topic, almost. I think we can move it forward. Nobody's made a motion. If somebody was to make a motion, we could let them speak, but then we can go through the vote. But I just feel that we've discussed it. Everybody's had a chance to speak. This person kind of waited to the very end. So I'm gonna, as chairman, decide that we're gonna move this forward. Unless you folks want to not do that, it's all up to you.
I'm sorry. I don't actually want to make the motion, and I also don't want to counter you, Rich, but I think that this person has not had a chance to speak. And so if I need to make a motion to let this person speak, I will. I'd prefer not to, and we just give them a moment.
It's up to the rest of the board.
I'd let that one person speak.
Okay. Kate and Dwight and Rick.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so go ahead, Matt. Who was the last one?
It was Megan.
Okay. Megan, go ahead, Megan. Wherever you are.
Although I don't see her now on the list.
She may have left. Oh. Yeah, it looks like she's gone, Rich.
Okay. We're supposed to go to the ventilation system. I'm really sorry. We have really run long. We do have Lori Garland here about the food service vehicle purchase. So Lori, if that's the only reason you're here, I'm gonna just move the agenda around a little bit to let you sneak out if you need to. So.
Sure. The grant was submitted today to the child nutrition program. And so I'm just sort of waiting the 24 hours. Typically when you submit a grant, it's what's considered conditionally approved, substantially approved. So I will start the process. Chris Medina was great and looked at some of the state contract bids out there for cars and did a nice analysis for what would be a great car. So it looks like we're going to go that route, knowing that we can do the service in town here. So I will start that process as soon as possible.
Is there any questions for Lori in the car? We don't need to take any action. We did that at the last meeting.
No, you gave me a $1 limit and we should come in under that. But we're also looking at space and durability and, being able to travel those back roads in the wintertime. So.
Put your snow on them tonight. So.
Yeah.
Everybody on the board all set with Lori then? Okay.
All set. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. I'll send updates as they come.
Okay, thank you. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Ventilation system updates, Matt?
I've got it, Rich.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
So we have the Alliance people are reviewing the controls at Wardsboro on Wednesday, and Alliance is doing preventative maintenance at Dover also on Wednesday. What's happening is they're doing a walkthrough. So you guys have invested an enormous amount of money, of which an enormous amount of grant money is going to be covering that. But we want to protect those assets. And so our director of operations has arranged for Alliance Mechanical to review all the controls and to make sure that the investment is going to be taken care of for years to come. So that's happening on Wednesday in both buildings. And it looks like most of the wiring in Dover is going to be done by Thanksgiving, which is exciting. And then we're going to install all the controls for the boilers. And then we'll work on the air handlers. The new heating valves are expected to be installed the week of this week. And then our long-awaited energy recovery ventilators are expected to be shipped on December 9th. And when they come, then we will work on the installation. And Wardsboro's new ERV has also been ordered, and we're looking forward to having highly operable systems in place, hopefully by the end of the year.
Any questions for Bill for the on the ventilation system update? Go ahead, Mark.
Bill, you probably can't answer this, although maybe you can. At Wardsboro, the current ERV, HRV is pulling from the attic. I'm assuming the new one's going to be installed to pull from outside air, not from the attic.
I actually can answer that. Yes, it will be pulling from outside air.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Bill. Next thing, does anybody else have any other old business? Okay, hearing none. New business, we have to approve accounts payable. So everybody should have gotten an email with the payables. I think it was last Thursday or Friday. Is there anybody that didn't get to see that?
This is Rick. I didn't get to see it. I actually didn't even get an agenda this week. I don't know, maybe I fell off the list.
I don't think I got the payables either.
Rick, I'll check on you on the list. But the payables, I believe, went out Saturday.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I got neither.
Oh, you're right. It went out Sunday, November 1st at 8:08 a.m. from a Donna Albin. So I take it nobody on the board got it.
I didn't get it.
No, didn't get it.
Okay, so then we can't approve this. So Bill, get that sent out just so everybody gets to review it, please. It shows,
Absolutely.
it actually shows to R. Thorpe at wyndhamcentralboard.org and RVUSD board at wyndhamcentralboard.org.
Yeah, I haven't used that email address in a while. Billy sent it to my personal one over the years. So that's probably why.
Okay, and Laura, you can get it either on your river valleys?
No.
Okay.
Well,
Bill,
I didn't get it at all.
okay. Bill, can you just check into that for us, please?
It should be in their emails right now.
Okay, I'm going to skip over it.
Rich, just one
yeah.
thing. Bill,
Yes.
that person may not have permission to send to those groups, so you may want to update that.
I will check into that.
Okay, Matt and Tammy actually submitted a written principals report. Are there any questions on anything that was in the written report? Go ahead, Mark.
Sorry. The fall benchmarks. I was wondering if you could, not right now, but maybe for the next meeting, just give us comparison over the last year or two. I'm really interested in seeing moving forward with COVID, how things are falling out.
Okay, Matt and Tammy, is that something you can do for us next meeting? Okay, I'm getting thumbs up, Mark. Is that okay? Anything else on the written principals report? Okay, if they're
all set.
Mark and then Laura. I'm sorry, Laura.
Yeah,
I said I'm all set.
Oh, okay.
The last paragraph under, well, the second one under financials, the last one on the first page. I'm assuming that grant is in regards only to secondary schools. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Matt and Tammy, is anything else new or anything else you want to bring up on principal's report that wasn't in your letter? Okay. Is there any questions for the principal from any board member?
I guess I have a couple of questions, Rich. I think,
Go ahead, Dwight.
oh, thanks. Maybe it's for Lori. I just noticed on the report that there's a grant opportunity for reimbursement tuition for qualifying schools on behalf of families who have relocated to the district due to the pandemic. Does the principals have any information on that? I was kind of curious.
Oh, be careful. We're talking less than 10.
Go ahead, Bill.
So without getting into specifics, it is possible in the CARES funding grant to get an attestation from a family who has a student in 7 through 12 who are willing to attest that they moved to our area for COVID-related reasons, and then we it's for reimbursement for the first half of tuition with that attestation in the CRF grant. But we cannot confirm or deny how many people that is.
Okay, thank you.
Kate, go ahead. Is Kate froze up? Maybe. Okay, I don't see anybody else moving. I'm not sure if Kate's with us or not. Superintendent's cabinet report. We also got, oh, there she is. Superintendent's cabinet report was, again, there was a written report submitted. Is there any questions from the board on the written superintendent report? Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Just one question. Under the Director of Operations, the Safe and Healthy Schools section, there was a mention of a Dover Elementary participated in a safety audit with VISBIT. Just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on what that was.
Yeah, I'll take a stab. Matt may want to add more, but I think it has to do with our handicap ramp and being able to rebuild that.
Okay, thank you.
Look, Nick, you're good, Matt, with that explanation. Okay, it is. If there's nothing, Bill, anything to add to the report?
Nope.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments for the superintendent about anything that's not on the report, or does the superintendent have anything else for us? Oh, we also had post-Thanksgiving enroll plans in SU region and state. I think we kind of covered that, or did we not?
You did. You covered it all in the earlier conversation.
Okay. Next thing we had is I happened to be talking to the CEO of the mover, and he was telling me about an air system for buses, and we were kind of joking a little bit about if you remember early on, we were told that the school buses were going to have all the windows down all winter long and drive up and down the roads, and I thought that was going to be kind of not a lot of fun. And he was mentioning that they had some ventilation systems that were supposed to be able to work on buses. They were looking into doing some of them for the mover. So I got the information. I sent it off to Bill and to Chris, our facilities and transportation person, just to have some discussion and see if it made sense or if what we're doing works well enough. So I think, Bill, you're going to speak to that.
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit. The board has a one-pager that Chris prepared that has all the details. The costs are $5,000 per bus. They recommend 2 units per bus. My thinking is that the board could review this tonight, and then if you wanted me to ask Chris to come on your second meeting in November, you could be prepared to ask some detailed questions because there will be a commitment of money if you guys want to go forward.
Okay, is there any questions or discussion from the board? Go ahead, Mark.
So I see that there's a $15,000 charge, or if we did this, would that just be for one West River bus?
It would only be the bus that would serve the Wardsboro students.
So how come that one would be 15,000 versus 5,000 for each of the Dover buses?
No, it's all three buses, Mark. They're $5,000 a bus.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we own two buses and we utilize a subcontracted service for some of the Wardsboro, a lot, or all the Wardsboro run. So it wouldn't be right just to put them in the Dover bus and not the Wardsboro bus. So it would be 15,000 for the three buses.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought it was 15,000 just for the Wardsboro bus.
It's a lot bigger bus.
And then if you look at the very bottom, Lori submitted this as part of the CRF funds grant. So if we get approved for it, you guys wouldn't even have to pay, but maybe 10 to 20% of the cost. But we won't know that. So that's why I want you to have some think time on it.
So if it's going to be mostly a CRF grant, would that additional 10 or 15% come out of the ESSER funds?
Possibly. We don't know exactly how they're going to allow us to use the ESSER fund.
Okay.
And you could get rejected in the CRF. So you have to be prepared for a $15,000 cost, or 10 to 20% of that, or zero of that. Those are the tough decisions. It's kind of like the decision we made this summer to go ahead and spend up to $250,000 on all the ventilation systems in both buildings, and with the hope that we would get a large chunk back in the CRF fund.
So, Bill, is there a lot of lead time on this, or are they fair? I mean, one of the things, we had a special meeting, or we moved the meeting up to discuss buying air purifiers for the building, because we were concerned that if we didn't jump on it, then they may not be available, and they may not be available in a timely fashion. What's the kind of lead time on this and to get them installed?
I don't know about installation. Ordering has not been communicated that it is a long thing like ERVs, but with everything COVID related, I cannot confirm a short or long timeline, but I don't think that 2 weeks is going to be a huge difference. But if you guys want to meet again, or if you want to commit the money tonight, we're happy to move forward.
Go ahead, Mark.
So I don't remember where. Somewhere in here it said that the units will take up some passenger space, passenger seating space. Moving forward, post COVID, is that going to end up becoming an issue for us as far as number of children on a bus?
Well, I don't know exactly how many seats it would be, but you guys own 72 passenger buses. So if we just make the assumption that it takes out the back row, for example, that's 6 possible seats. So you'd go down to a 66er. I'm going to guess that the traveling on the bus, looking at pre-COVID time, I would think it could handle it, but Matt would know better than I would. The challenge is going to be that you've just increased 31 individuals at the school during the COVID time, so you really don't have a true comparable.
It also says installation of units would need to be performed in-house, requires 12-volt DC ignition power and ground. Units would take up some floor or ceiling space. Lead times are high at the moment, although I could not get an estimated time frame.
There we go.
Okay. I see nobody making a motion, so we're gonna move on.
No, Rich,
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm ready to make a motion, but when do we meet again?
in 2 weeks. On the 16th.
So can we put this on the agenda again for then?
Yeah.
And Bill, if Chris can come, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll ask Chris to come and I'll put it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. Next thing I have is the table meeting table contents on the River Valley's annual report.
Yeah, so the person we engaged to do your work for your mailing for River Valleys, as you remember, Anita did it for us last year and did not want to do it again going forward. So we hired a person who works in our grants and with our director of curriculum in a part-time role. And so I met with her. We reviewed your annual report and mailing last year, and I asked her to produce a table of contents for some things for the board to consider to include. And most of it is stuff that was in last year's. The things with the 2 stars are suggestions of the author to add. And she's laid out a suggested timeline. And so I just wanted to run this by the board and see if you had any major questions so that she can start moving forward.
Go ahead, Mark.
I think you should just put "Go ahead, Mark" on a recording. After the last town meeting, we talked about including the full budget in the mailing this time. And along the lines, the last year, I took the summary budget file and manipulated it a fair amount in order to make it more readable. And now it's going to have to be done again for that file as well as the full budget file. We talked about taking the count numbers out, putting line numbers in so people can refer to them, making sure coloring is better than the printout we did last year, some things along those lines.
So that sounds like you want to be a reviewer and an editor of the budget portion, as well as including the entire budget as a suggestion for this publication?
I was just about to say I was not volunteering. But I will do it if it needs to get done and there isn't somebody else to do it, I will do it.
So how does the rest of the board feel? We did have that discussion last year. It did become an issue with some people having some specific questions. Is there anybody else on the board that feels that we want to see the entire budget in the report? We also discussed, it's going to require a few more pages, but I don't remember the cost being a huge amount. Maybe somebody else does remember what that amount was.
I think it was a couple $100 more.
Yeah, we have to add 4 pages because of the way they set it up. So I think we would add 1 more page.
Yeah, we have to add 1 sheet of paper, which
Right.
is 4 pages. Yeah, I think it was
one group of pages.
I think it was a couple $100 more.
Anybody else on the board, Laura?
Yeah, I'm in favor of including the whole thing, I think.
Kate, Rick, or Dwight?
I kind of think we all need to see it, not just one person. I would not want to be that editor to make the decision for all of us.
No, that's not. Yeah, and Rick, we always have in the past reviewed it So yes, that I believe we would still be doing that. We're not having just one person review it. But the other question is, just so the person together, do we want to do the entire budget or just a budget summary?
I think we should probably do the entire budget. I want to be as transparent as possible, and I think all the board members do also.
Okay, Kate or Dwight?
Let's go for transparency.
Yeah, I do remember it being a concern from the public, so I think we should certainly do it.
Okay, so Bill, we're going to add not just a summary budget, but at least under the budgets, we want the entire budget, but it doesn't need the codes, so it can be shrunk down a bit and more user friendly. We do like line item numbers, so if somebody asks a question, we can ask what specific line item. And I'll get right to you, Mark.
Oh, okay, we can. I understand what you're looking for.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say to Rick's comment that it wasn't editing the document. It was just, there's a fair amount of work that has to be done to the budget summary and the budget files in order to make them usable. So it was just doing that work.
It wasn't changing budget numbers, or it wasn't adding things or putting your name in line items so we can pay you more, right? Okay, so is everybody good with that? Bill, I don't think we need to make a motion or anything on this because we'll prove it presented to us, but I think everything else looks good.
Yeah, I just wanted you guys to be aware of the work that was going on. Of course, you guys will have the final view and you'll have views before it gets to, anything crazy. So you guys have to sign off on it before it goes out.
Okay. I got new business. Is there any other new business from anybody? I'm not seeing any. I wanted to just bring up one thing to think about, and we're going to have more of a discussion during budget review time, but because we only have the superintendent at the first meeting, I have thrown this out before in some other discussions, but there is the ability for us as a school district to pay money or hire a teacher that goes to a remote learning program. And by supplying a teacher to the program, it gives us a 25 slots in the remote learning program. So one of the things that I kind of bounce around on the Wyndham Central side, or we've bounced around, is maybe we can do it as a fee for, or an agency fund, or a fund feed fund. I forget what to call it now instead of agency fund.
Fee for service.
Fee for service. Thank you. Fee-fi-fo-fum. So I just wanted to throw that out. I don't want to have a discussion about it tonight because it's really not time, but I just wanted to put it in people's minds and just have Bill tell us where it's at so we could look at it. And it may help us, or it may be an option for people that feel more comfortable not being in the building. It wouldn't be something we could do this year, but it's definitely something we can put into next year's budget. And also when we do the fee-fi-fo-fum budget at the SU, we can add that to it also. Bill, can you give us a 2-minute overview?
Yeah, so this is a unique situation that happened only because of COVID, and it happened super fast. Normally in high school, there's a thing called the Vermont Learning Collaborative that allows for Vermont high schools to offer a teacher to teach in that collaborative, and then in exchange, the school gets slots. Well, this year, in about an 8-day period, they created it for K through 12, but the deadline was August 13th, which was a really odd deadline, but understandable that they had to have it that early to get up and running for when school was going to start up in the north on August 21st. They didn't change the deadline when school started on September 8th, so it really wasn't an opportunity for us to do this year. But if it is something that they do allow next year, I think it's very forward thinking to think about how that might be a part of an investment River Valley or Union might want to make to allow for remote learning on an ongoing basis. It would be very similar to a commercialized system that you might see like K through 12. It would be completely devoid of any connection to the school at all. It would be completely outside of the realm. The principals would have nothing to do with the curriculum. It would just be an investment in a teacher that would participate in that consortium, and then you would get so many slots that would match that. So I think it's something worth investigating, and I do appreciate thinking about it now because it might be something you want to consider for next fall, and during budget season is the appropriate time.
So again, I was just looking so that kind of put the seed in people's minds, not to spend a lot of time tonight, but then give Matt and Tammy some time to research it for us and see what they think, and Bill to do that. And when we do the budget to, plan on it if it's something we think we want to move forward on, or even put it off for another year. But just to see if it's a possibility that may work out for us. Did anybody else have any other new business? Okay. Policy. We wrote the agenda to meet that we would hope that the minutes would get corrected so we could move forward with these. So we have two that we have posted, hopefully in the usual places. So we have two to adopt and two.
Four.
Pardon?
The two warnings should be adopted. They were already warned.
The challenge, Mark, is that in the minutes and in the video, it is not clear whether they were warned. It's very clear that they were said to be adopted.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to be doubly sure, because you and Kate had done such a nice job on the preparation. I would rather just warn those two, because it wasn't super clear, just so that it doesn't come back to not following the appropriate process. But it is up to the board to decide what you guys want to do.
Helps some suspenders.
Well, between you and Kate, are you guys okay with that? Then re-warning them, and then we'll adopt them at the next meeting?
I'm okay with rewarning and giving extra notice if we need to, making sure that everybody's clear.
I agree.
Okay. So then let's start. We'll go do this one at a time. And Peter, if we get out of hand here, you just yell at us, okay, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so B8, electronic communication. We want to adopt this. So I would need a motion in a second.
So I'll move that we adopt B8 electronic communication.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so Peter, Mark moved and Laura seconded that we adopt B8 electronic communication. Matt and Tammy, has that been warned in the normal warning spots? I was really hoping Matt was going to bring the thing with the thumbtack hole in it so we could confirm it. Good man. Any discussion? Of course, I couldn't see what it said. It could have been your lunch report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
motion
Aye.
appears as though the motion carries. Motion carries. So you have a new B8 electronic communication. Next one is C4 English learners et al.
I'll move that we adopt C4 English learners.
I second that we adopt it.
Okay, so Peter, Mark moved to adopt, and Kate seconded that we adopt C4 English learners et al. Matt, that was properly posted.
Got it.
Okay, Peter says we've got it. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 It appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it. C4 has been adopted. Another new policy for you folks. Next one is C11, Student Freedoms of Expression et al. So we're going to make a motion and vote to warn this. So this will be posted for 2 weeks, and then we'll do it. We'll be able to adopt it in our next meeting.
So moved.
Okay, Mark moved to adopt.
Warn.
I'm sorry, C11, Student Freedom of Expression et al. Is there a second to that?
I second.
Kate seconds it. Peter, are you all set?
10-4.
Okay, so this is to warn, not to adopt. C11, Student Freedom of Expression. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 It appears though the ayes have it. The ayes have it, so that'll get posted. Matt and Tammy, please, and Bill. Has it been posted already?
bet.
Okay. So we can repost it. We can just change the date on it. And then last one is C20, Student Conduct and Discipline et al. Can we get a motion to, again, we want to warn this one, not adopt it.
I'll move that we warn C20 Student Conduct and Discipline.
Second.
Okay. Mark moved that we warn Student Conduct and Discipline et al. Laura Celia seconded it. Peter, do you have that?
Aye, sir.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Yep.
Go ahead, Mark.
At the last meeting, Rick had asked about the word. Oh, I don't remember. I just want to read the answer that I got from VSBA when I sent them a question about why it was worded the way it was. They said VSBA model policy C20 describes safe, orderly, civil, and positive learning environment, which is the outcome of student conduct. Within the introduction, the policy states, the goal of this policy is to create an environment where the rules for students' behavior are clearly stated, are understood and accepted by students and staff, and are applied in compliance with due process requirements. This policy is to be applied in conjunction with the school's overall discipline plan developed pursuant to 16 VSA 1161A. The policy goes beyond the prohibition of weapons and states that student conduct behavior, affects the overall learning environment and that students and administrative staff are responsible for the safe and productive learning environment through behavior, in parentheses, conduct. So that's where the word conduct comes in, Rick.
Oh, I got it, Mark. I still don't agree with it, but I've got it. It certainly is not telling us about conduct, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of warning C20 Student Conduct and Discipline et al. Signify so by saying aye.
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 It appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it. So we've got two that are going to be posted to be voted on next meeting. Mark, when are we going to, Mark and Kate, when will we be seeing new policies to come before the board?
We're going to meet Friday, November 13th, 9 a.m. I'm going to send the agenda out this Friday.
So you'll have some to give for.
We'll have at least, I think at least one new and maybe two new policies for you at the next meeting.
Okay. So if anybody has any interest, Mark is chairing the policy group, and they meet once a month and review policies and review new policies that have come out. So thank you guys, Kate and Mark, for doing that for us.
Thank you both for taking this on.
And policy is one of the most important things a school board's responsibilities is besides presenting budgets, is setting policy for the administration to follow. Matt, I don't know where you went. You went up there now. Matt or Tammy, you have any executive session item? No, Bill, there's nothing that you need to bring up, right?
Nope, good to go.
Okay, so next meeting is November 16th at 6 p.m.
Rich,
Yeah.
do we need to do the accounts payable? We're gonna wait on that.
We could go back to it if everybody had it. Did everybody have a chance to review it?
I have not reviewed it yet. I have one quick thing that I'd like to add.
Hang on, Mark. I'll get back to you. Let's finish on.
Just want to make sure it's not imperative that gets done.
No, I did sign it. I'm a signatory and got dropped off at the office. So when nobody else had seen it, I actually reviewed it yesterday and it got dropped off today. I was good with it. So I just signed it so that they can go ahead and send checks out. And then I thought everybody could look at it. If there's any questions, we can bring it up at the next meeting.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds good.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds like everybody's good. Mark, go ahead. You had something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to, we've had some questions about ADMs and at the October 28th at WCSU meeting or something, we got numbers. So I just wanted to report them out so that everybody has them. The fiscal year 22 pre-K through 6 ADM is 164. Fiscal year 21 was 137. And the fiscal year 22 K through 12 is 314. I don't have the fiscal year 21 for that.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or are you guys ready to adjourn?
Richard?
Laura?
Once again, I just would like to thank the administrators and all of the parents and staff that participated in this meeting, and for all that everyone is doing to try and provide a safe learning environment for our kids. We recognize and see the sacrifices that you all are making, and we really thank you.
I think it's definitely something echoed by the entire board. So thank you to all the staff that's still with us, and Bill and Matt and Tammy. It's definitely been an interesting year, and I don't think it's going to go away as quick as everybody was hoping. So. Okay. Entertain. Bill, I'll leave your paperwork in the normal spot for you.
You got it. Thank you very much. Oh, Rich, I have one quick thing.
Yes.
I would just like to recognize that a former Dover graduate is now a reporter on our call right now for the Deerfield Valley News. I believe a graduate of like 2013, Miss Amelia Nick. So I just thought that was important.
2010.
Yeah, Bill, she was at the last meeting too.
Well, I wasn't there.
Oh, no, we got introduced to us, so. But thank you for bringing that to our attention in case we missed it. Okay, if there's nothing else.
There is one other thing, which it was in both the principals and superintendent's report, but probably should be noted that our PE teacher won some award. Matt, can you save me here?
Yes, the PE teacher at Dover won the Shape Vermont Elementary PE Teacher of the Year award. That's Wendy Johnson. So we're super proud of Wendy's work with the kids, and it's a great honor for her.
Hey,
I'll
thank you,
move to
Mark.
adjourn.
Rick moves to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mark seconds it.
Second.
Kate, yeah, everybody's slow. And thank you. Hey, Laura, can you give me a call at the office about that water thing? Oh, she's gone. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We say aye, do we?
Yes, I will call you.
Thanks,
Okay,
everyone.
thank you.